Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is your boy MongoSlade, and today we've got our pop culture video. And today's all be about hip hop. It's going to be breakdancing at the Olympics and the 35th anniversary of Rap City on BET. There's a couple of articles I want to go over in talking about Rap City. There's also going to be a uh, a discussion about breakdancing at the Olympics, which of course took place over the weekend. It was a lot of conversation about that event, I guess you could say, about the relevance of it. Um, of course, the racial element of it. It's all going to be discussed here. We're going to talk about the winners, the and how everything worked out. Um, I gotta say, I was pretty surprised to hear that breakdancing was going to be at the Olympics, considering I did not really consider breakdancing a sport. Now, I can see that it is a competition. I can see, but I see it more as performance art. So for me, when I heard that it was going to be at the Olympics, I said, well, this is basically gymnastics with music because I don't understand how they're going to grade the artists. I like things that are more cut and dry. Like the reason why I don't watch gymnastics is because I don't know how it's scored. I don't know how you win. So for me, if I can't tell how do you win, how do you score points, I can't get into it. Now, breakdancing, they had to try to explain how you score points. And the judges, before we get to who the judges were, they just talk about the judges and they say that the performers they're looking for technique, vocabulary, execution, musicality, and originality. So I was like, okay, I know what some of these things are. I don't know what vocabulary means in this context though, because they're not talking. I would imagine it's body language, attitude, maybe. Musicality would be staying on beat, or are you dancing on the beats, or are you dancing on the lyrics, etc. Technique would be since most people are doing these techniques all over again. They're doing some things that are original, but are you doing the technique that everybody recognizes good? And are you executing it well? So I was watching this and I watched the entirety of it. I watched the men's and the women's, and I walked away from it saying to myself, I don't think breakdancing is an Olympic sport. It was cool to see, it was interesting, but I myself fell into the same issues that a lot of the hoteps and a lot of the woke blacks fell into. When I started the Olympics, I started watching breaking at the Olympics. I was immediately surprised at the hosts not being black. All right, the two guys with microphones, neither one of them are black. Okay, they go through all the judges. None of the judges are black. They go through the DJs. Neither of the DJs are black. Then they go through for the women all of the dancers, the competitors. I think one of the young ladies looked like Sade Adu. She's from Morocco. She might have been the only black one. And then when they went through the men, there was two black ones. One was Afro French, named Danny Dan, and another one was called Jeffro from the USA. So they had all these women, all these men, one black male from the United States in this entire situation. So even I fell into it, into the question of what's going on here. Why ain't no brothers at this? Like, I'm okay with the Ukrainians and the Japanese and the Lithuanians and the Australians or whatever breakdancing. I'm not one of these people who think you should gatekeep. I think you're 40 years too late anyway. Because most of the people who are complaining, breakdancing is older than they are, and people have been in other countries breakdancing long before you were even born. So if you're complaining that a Japanese girl won the gold medal in breakdancing, well, they got all kind of hip hop clubs over in Japan. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just saying you had three or four, maybe four or five spots representing the United States. One of those people were black. One of them was Hispanic. Those were the two males. On the women's side, I think one of them was Asian. One of the girls was Asian logistics. She was Asian, and Sunny, who was also Asian. So both of the women who are in the breakdancing competition, both of them are Asian. And in the male side of the U.S., one of them was black, and another one was Hispanic. That should be that should flip out blacks and Hispanics. I didn't see a lot of Hispanics complaining though, despite the fact they're probably one of the most notable breakdancers in history. Crazy Legs is Hispanic, and he did an interview talking about breakdancing at the Olympics in the New York Post. We'll talk about that in a second. But I wasn't. I'm not a gatekeeper. I think that if you create culture and other people appreciate it, you should be able to get into it. You should share it. And so, Black Americans, the people of Bronx, they created breakdancing. It was a thing in the '60s. I mean, sorry, not in the '60s, in the '70s. It was popularized in the '80s. It was solidified in movies, maybe in like 1980, 1984, and stuff like that. Beat Street and Breaking, and there's been various hip hop dance related movies since then. Like what was that one that had the pretty girl in it? I think her name was Jessica Alba. But there's been plenty of hip hop dance movies and stuff like this. Breakdancing has been mainstream for a while. But so I wasn't surprised that other countries engaged in breakdance. I was shocked at the apparel choices. Everybody dressed like they were all wearing baggy pants, oversized t-shirts, do-rags, hat to the back. I was floored at that element, that it looked like 2001. It was honey, okay. It looked like 2001. Everybody who stepped out made it look like 2001. I was like, I haven't seen this many white people in baggy pants since since like 2000. Since I first saw the X Games on MTV, I never saw this many white people in baggy pants. You know, so I was surprised at that, but I wasn't surprised that people loved the culture and they participated in it. I was surprised that you had a United States team and there were no black people on the team. There was only one. You can only find one homie. He was like in his 30s or something like that. Now, it ended up being a huge discussion. You know, a lot of the blackity blacks, they were talking about how we need to gatekeep, and I was like, I disagree with that. It's too late. A lot of the other blacks were kind of like, well, you threw it away, and I found myself gravitating more towards that side, and that side being there's a lot of people who don't even realize that breakdancing is a part of the culture that they claim to love and appreciate, etc. They have never participated in a breakdancing competition. They've never supported one. They've never retweeted it. They've never talked about it. They don't really, you know, get involved with those kinds of those kinds of uh those kinds of events. So why would you be upset that there aren't any black people involved? And that's what I found myself kind of surprised. Stone Mexican guy says, "Why is breakdancing an Olympic sport?" I have no idea. I don't know where it came from. I don't. Usually, people petition to have certain things as an Olympic sport. But if I was going to imagine that you would have dancing as an Olympic sport, wouldn't it be like ballet or something more along those lines? I would imagine those things would be more along the lines of an Olympic sport rather than breakdance. Now, maybe somebody who knows a little bit more about this thing than I do can explain why breakdancing ended up as an Olympic sport. So I'm not sure how we got that far, but I'm not upset about it. I like it. I thought it was great. You know, I grew up g- years after breakdancing was popular. I was born in 1984, so that means I was growing up in the early 90s. You saw people doing like the hammer dance, but they didn't break dance. Big Daddy Kane danced in his music videos, but he didn't break dance. Tupac was the backup dancer, but he didn't break dance. You didn't see a lot of break dancing in music videos. You didn't see a lot of break dancing on television. Yeah, the movies was there, but I wasn't immersed in breaking as part of the culture. Graffiti, yes. DJ, yes. MCing, absolutely. But breakdancing was like the one thing that seemingly I knew it existed, but you didn't see a lot of it, you know? And so for some people, they're seeing breaking for the first time, and it's at the Olympics. And it's, this really terrible Australian woman making a mockery of it, rolling around on the ground, and other people are like, we need to gatekeep because look at this. It's like she was the only one that was really. That's why I said graffiti. But she was the only one that really made a mockery of everything. Everybody else was good, you know. Everybody else did their best except for this one woman, this Australian lady. She was uniquely bad at this. Like she was really, really bad. And then I heard that she had degrees in breakdancing and a bunch of other woke shit from an Australian college. And she's a feminist and all this kind of stuff. I was like, bro, ugh. I don't want that to be. I hate that was the takeaway from breakdancing at the Olympics. I hate that. I hate that she tarred this entire thing because it had the opportunity to be something fun. And I think it was unique enough that it got everybody's attention. I would imagine a lot of people watched it, but I've already heard that it's been dropped already, that this was the first year and it will likely be the last year because even though the Olympics is going to be in Los Angeles in 4 years, they're not picking up breakdancing. And of all places to pick up breakdancing, Los Angeles should be the place. But then I joked and said maybe they'll pick up crip walking and not nan nigga from Compton will be there. It'd be a bunch of crip walking Vietnamese folks, and nobody from Treetop Pyru is going to make the cut. They're going to go to Memphis. Not going to be one black juker. They're not going to no footwork in Chicago. So I think we need to just like it because it it proves and it shows the power of hip hop culture, which was created by poor people in the Bronx. You can argue about what those people look like and what their names are and all that shit. I don't care. But it was created by poor Americans in the projects of New York, and it went from there locally, nationally, internationally, and we made it all the way to the Olympics. And I'm very proud of that. It's like when you start seeing black people get, or not even black people, but hip hop and Grammys. You know, some people complain, oh, not enough, not enough Grammys outside of the hip hop and all this stuff. But whenever those things, you break that glass ceiling and something that you created and only it seemed like only you really cared about becomes something that everybody cares about and everybody is interested in. You should take pride in that. You should definitely take pride in that. And it was interesting because the other events I was really watching was judo, and judo was created in Japan. They didn't win the gold medals in Japan; they came second. Well, some of them won gold medals, but in the team events, Japan came second to the French, and the entire French team was black. The entire French team. I was like, there are no white people in France that know how to judo. There's not one. The entire team is black. Can't argue with that. So it opened my eyes quite a bit to the not just the diversity, but to the popularity of things. And at breakdance, it was far more popular than I thought it would be. And I was very surprised to see that breakdancing was sex segregated. There was a B girls and a B boy side, and I was surprised because I didn't think that it needed to be. I don't know, but that's kind of where it set in with me. I was like, okay, this ought to be cool. At the very least, it'll be cool, and it was fine. It wasn't exactly the kind of stuff you would have seen recorded 30 or 40 years ago. It was very corporate. It was very sterile, and that really is what I saw some people complain about. That this is poor people's culture that they're taking to the Olympics and they're classing it up, and they got the ciphers, a big circle. There's no cardboard on the floor, no cardboard on the ground, and all this kind of stuff. So I get that. So before we get into the Olympics, let's talk about what Crazy Legs thinks, because he got an opportunity to see a little bit of it before the Olympic Games, and this article actually came out before the Olympic Games even occurred. And Crazy Legs, Richard Crazy Legs Cologne, famous breakdancer of, I think he's Puerto Rican. He criticized the music. He says it was just a modern kind of breakbeat. You could tell it's computerized. There was no funk or soul. It leaves the dancers having to find a vibe. And it was said that the dancers couldn't pick their own music. They basically had to freestyle and dance over whatever the DJ played. So that was interesting. Now there was some music on there that was recognizable. There was some James Brown. There was in the finals, I believe it was Method Man, Judgment Day, which I was surprised to hear that. Like, that's not a song you would hear necessarily when it comes to breakdancing. Um, so it was interesting. He continues by saying he didn't like it because it was far away from the people. He says, when you're far from the people, it's harder because you're not feeling the energy. Out in the community, that's where you can be the freest. He says there are a whole new bunch of talents with amazing difficulty level. As he was talking about the kind of moves they were pulling off. He says it's kind of like pulling an outfit together. It makes a person cool and original with swag, saying that the event is going to lack flavor because it's production levels is with the giant circle and all this kind of stuff. It's not quite what what these people wanted it to be. Well, I was okay with it. I thought it was fun. Okay. So Snoop Dogg opened up the ceremony. He had a giant stick that he hit on the ground a couple of times um, to start the games. And I didn't understand it at first. I was surprised there were so many Chinese folks, so many Japanese people. I was I was shocked by how many people have turned. Like they talked about some of these dancers knowing each other in their small community for years and years. Like I'm pretty sure most of you guys saw some of the semifinals, maybe. Um, and where one of the dancers ended up predicting his opponent's next move. That got a pretty good pop out of the crowd. And he said he was able to do that because he was so familiar with the guy from all the years that they were in the same circuit. So the Japanese girl named Amy, she won the gold medal for the women. And a guy named Phil Wizard of Canada, who is clearly Asian, won the gold medal for the men. The French guy, Danny Dan, he was second. And Victor, who is Hispanic and American, he won the bronze. And I'll tell you, like, I thought it was a good competition. I thought it was entertaining. You got to see a lot of cool stuff. I was having a very difficult time judging the competition because I can't tell how do you win, So it was basically just sit back and vibe, listen to the break beats and watch the people move. And it was interesting how they were judging it. Like you had to win your round, but if you got more votes, even if you lost the round, you won the battle. It was really strange because sometimes people would split the rounds, but they would say, okay, this guy got more votes total. The 2 rounds, this guy got more votes in his 2 rounds. Or maybe he lost the second round, but he picked up enough votes to win overall. And I was like, okay, whatever. I don't get how that works, but fine. Like fine. Um, and that took a lot of it out of it for me because it's not just how do you root for somebody if you don't know whether they're winning or losing. When you're not sure how it's being scored, it takes a lot of it out for me too because it's like, okay, I don't know if this guy is screwing up or if he's doing great. I'm not sure what's happening. But only one person was like uniquely bad. Mm. And I didn't know what else to say about that really. So I was okay with breaking being an Olympic sport. I was cool with it. I thought it was fun. Whenever things go mainstream, they're not going to be dirty and grimy and backwater like you used to. That people say that about WWE all the time. It's too clean. It's too pristine. They like these old GCW shows where it's dark and the crowd's very close to the ring and it's less professional. The floors are sticky and everything. It's like, I don't. I don't care about that crap. You know, I don't care about that shit. I'm 100% cool with it being what it is. You know, I'm all right with it being. If I can go to one of those shows, and I do like going to GCW shows, mostly because they're in my neighborhood. They're right around the corner from my house. If I had to go anywhere far, I probably wouldn't go. But the vibe is fine. You know, it's very different from going to a big WWE show. Much fewer people to deal with, which is a positive. But the folks who think that everything that starts out small should stay small forever, you're killing the growth of it. I think if anything, the Olympics doing this has opened the door for other people to get involved with breakdancing. Now it's been an Olympic sport, even if it never becomes one again. It's something that advertisers can jump on to, and you can get people paid to do it. And as long as people are getting paid to do it, more people will get into it. There's a lot of dancers out there who they do music videos, they do Las Vegas shows, that kind of stuff. And if they could get paid more to dance, I think that's great. To keep the culture moving, good. And then maybe one day it'll be more on more solid ground. Maybe other networks will pick up breakdancing as an event that people might want to watch, or breakdancing that people might want to see, and you see more of it, and it'd be more to your liking. Because I remember when battle rap, the same thing happened there. Battle rap for a long time was two guys yelling at each other on the streets of New York. You know, that's how Smack started it when he first started doing battles. It might be a celebrity there, like one time Diddy was there, one of his artists or something like that. Or other times it just be homies that was on the block who known for rapping, and they rap against each other, and that's it. And then it made it to 106 in Park, where they put a little track behind it. They were rapping over beats and everything, and people didn't take that too seriously. Then it was Fight Club, that was MTV, I believe it was. And then Wildin' Out, and then Smack got their shit together. They became a little bit more corporate. So, I mean, it happened. It grew. It grew from one thing to another, which ended up being incredibly positive overall for the culture. And now battle rappers make a decent living. You know, they went from making little to nothing to making a decent living at battle rap. One Kiz One Kizun says breaking at the Olympics is pro sports level event by rhythmic gymnastics. I don't know what the hell that is. What the hell is rhythmic gymnastics? I don't know what that is. Like the Olympics have like 800 categories, but you only got like a certain amount of time to watch all this shit. So none of this stuff is like on NBC. Like I didn't realize that once the Olympic Games was over, they was taking everything down. I didn't even realize that. It's like people got to go to work in the middle of the day. How could I watch Taekwondo, which is like 3 hours, and boxing, which is 3 hours, and judo, which is 3 hours, and wrestling, which is like 3 hours, staggered over all this time, along with basketball and track and everything. Like you can't watch everything, for Christ's sake. I never heard a BHI rap. Well, Black Hebrew Israelite. I don't know. I think he's just talking about those guys yelling and cussing at people. Pretty much what they do. So there's a lot of people out there who, of course, they don't like to see culture grow. They wanted to stay their baby forever, even if it means that they completely ignored it the entire time. There's a lot of black people who have ignored hip hop in the culture of hip hop for a long time. They complained when the white boys started doing the battle raps. Cause I think when Smack was doing battle rap, there's a couple of white boys in Canada that started their own battle rap league. They complained about that, bitched about that. So, I mean, these things happen. I want to see things grow. So, I think the more things grow, the more opportunities could be created. The more people can enjoy it. The more cultural exchange that you have with other people, the better off the world is. So, you see, even though that terrible Australian lady almost ruined it for everybody, I was okay with breaking being at the Olympics. I thought it was fun. Now, let's talk about MTV. I'm sorry, BET Rap City, because it's the 35-year anniversary of it, and a guy named Dark Adams wrote an article on Medium about Rap City. I'm going to go through his article. I also want to talk about Rap City. Rolling Stone also wrote an article about it in 2017. Um, so Alvin, the unseen DJ, went to BET to pitch the idea for a hip hop week when it comes to hip hop videos. Now the issue with Yo MTV Raps, which I was old enough for it to know it existed, but I was too young to have seen it because Yo MTV Raps was gone by the time I really grew up. So I probably saw, and I didn't have cable growing up either, so it wasn't easy for me. I didn't become really a Rap City fan until '99 when I got cable, maybe '98. I think I had cable in '97, so maybe '97 to 2001 or whatever. We had bootleg cable. So Dart Adams was talking about the early days of the relationship between Rap City and Yo MTV Raps, and how hip hop was growing, but MTV treated it like we only show rap videos during Yo MTV Raps, and that was it. While BT, they would they didn't show rap videos at all at first, and then they had it grow out of the old Donnie Simpson TV show, Video Vibrations, and he basically took over his show for once a month or something like that, and played rap videos. And that proved to BET that people wanted to see rap videos. So they got their own show. And the show was longer than MTV, Yo MTV Raps. And they were basically in competition all this time with Yo MTV Raps. And then MTV being an actual music station, they would end up getting the world premiere of a music video, but they would only show it once on Yo MTV Raps. Meanwhile, BET would show it on Rap City. They would show it on Video Vibrations. They would also show it on other video shows. So your video got played more often on BET than it would on MTV. I thought that was fun. And he discussed also that Yo MTV Raps went away once rap became mainstream. It became more mainstream, I think in like 92, 93 or whatever. I don't remember when Yo MTV Raps went off the air. Hopefully I can find that in here somewhere. But once, Yo MTV Raps went off the air, they just started playing music videos in a loop. And I want to read some of Dart Adams, his commentary on this, because he seems to be a little bit older than I am. He seems to be like 5 or 6 years older than I am. And when he talks about taping music videos, and here I used to tape music videos too, but it was a it was a different time. The stuff that he liked to listen to and stuff I was listening to was completely different. So I think it was looking to see when Yo MTV Raps went off the air. He did a really good job too. Okay, so I think it's 95. He says, conversely, by 1995, rap was wildly popular in the mainstream music space. Black radio wasn't treating the genre like a redheaded stepchild anymore. Sprite was flat out relying on it to sell soda, and the bet was paying off handsomely for them. At this time, rap was going through yet another golden era. Classic material was dropping with such frequency, and the field yielded such high quality material on a consistent basis that journalists simply couldn't discern well enough to determine how good an album actually was at the time it was released in the Source and Rap Pages. Rap Pages is one of the many competitive magazines for the Source. He says it wasn't until the smoke cleared years later that people passed before could look back and realize how many classic albums received a 3 or a 3.5 mic rating. He says MTV was seeing all this occur in real time and made a decision. They no longer needed to isolate rap videos to yo blocks, and they could just add them directly to the regular rotation. The final episode of Yo MTV Raps would air August 17th, 1995. This was over 2 weeks after Raekwon, the chef, released Only Built for Cuban Links, and days after the opening of the documentary The Show. The war was over. Rap City had won. So, but this is the part that I really liked, is that when he talked about MTV getting rid of that video block, the yo block that they called it, he likened it to integration. I know that this is all very dramatic, but I felt what he was saying. He said, to MTV, this meant equality. For rap fans, it meant it got buried. When Major League Baseball integrated, it meant the death of the Negro Leagues. In the case of BET, they reaped all the rewards of Yo MTV Raps ending. So they're saying basically that once Yo MTV Raps went away, you started getting Rap City being the only major video block, specifically with rap video. And he talks about the years of Joe Sinclair, which I've seen some of that stuff. I've seen some of the Joe Sinclair stuff. And he talks about some of his favorite videos from that time, some of his favorite artists from that time. And then, of course, because he's a little bit older, he wasn't as interested in when they moved to the basement, which is when I started watching Rap City, he wasn't as interested anymore. He even says he was 24, 25 in 99, 2000. So I was no longer the same person who was recording videos off BET. He says, at a full-time job, I was watching my nephew and niece had moved to a new apartment, only on the PlayStation, VCR, and DVD player. I was in a different stage of life. For this reason, I don't even care to write about any of the now considered iconic Rap City The Basement episodes from the Big Tigger era. I'm not passionate about any of those shows. I'm not going to pretend to be, which is very uppity. But I know how people are. So I love Rap City The Basement. I thought Rap City The Basement was amazing. I used to come, the thing is, usually the story goes people come home from school and watch that stuff. I was skipping school a lot. So I didn't have to come home and watch Rap City. I was already there, you know? But Rap City was, you got to humanize the artist quite a bit. And again, the Joe Clair years, which according to Rolling Stone was 1994 to 1999. 106 in Park happened. I think it was around 2008, maybe 99. Whenever it wasn't too long after TRL was created. Because black people had to have their own version of everything. So once TRL was created, it didn't take long before they did a black version called 106 in Park. I'm pretty sure it was within the same year that TRL was booted up. So maybe I think TRL was 98, maybe. I don't know, but maybe it was 2000. I was a little too old for 106 in Park though. I didn't really like it. They played a lot of R&B videos and stuff like that, and I was like, that's like pop music for black people, pretty much. A lot of Chris Brown and R. Kelly and that kind of shit, right? So I loved Rap City the Basement. I thought it was fantastic. You know, and what the guest would come on and sell his album, then do his freestyle at the end. I thought it did a really good job of selling the artist. But I kind of got what Dart Adams was saying. It was basically, it stopped being about the music video. It started being more about people using Rap City to market the mainstream artists. Like in the early days, from my understanding of what he was talking about, they would play underground rap. Compton's Most Wanted, Mick Geronimo, that kind of shit, right? And then once Rap City became the only place to break music videos, the corporations found out and found a way to manipulate the system. So now, Def Jam and Interscope, they're sending all of their artists, music videos to BET, making sure that they get aired. And then they started doing, interviews with the artists. And whenever there's interviews that need to be done with the artists, there's going to be some level of, I guess you could say, favoritism. But I love Rap City the Basement. Tigger was a fun guy, very chill. I remember that one tense scenario he had with a Ghostface Killer with the heads in the bag and everything. Like, that was hilarious. That was a very humorous time for me. But I remember mostly because I used to record all of the freestyles. I used to record all them shits on tape. I probably still got them in the attic somewhere. And I mean, of course, there's no need to have them now because of YouTube. But those things were culturally relevant for sure. And some really fun shit happened on there, but they didn't really play too many underground rap videos. So maybe he had a good reason to kind of walk away. Pretty much everything they played was mainstream. If you wanted to see something that was remotely underground, you had to wait till 3 in the morning with BET Uncut. And then those were kind of vulgar records. You know, it wasn't just underground, but they were more vulgar. J Reaction says MTV stopped all the genre specialty shows, even for rock fans. Did they really? Because if I remember correctly, you know what? I think you might be right because I'm trying to think of an MTV show that was specifically for certain groups. And no, I think you're right. I think they did stop doing all that stuff. It just became music videos on a loop, and it popped up sometimes after Alanis Morissette and before the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You might catch a music video, a rap video on there at some point. But think about that growth though, because remember, there was a time where they claimed the only black person MTV played was Michael Jackson. And then they went from that to having Yo MTV Raps, which featured tons of black artists, and then they got rid of that and just put the black artists in rotation. So then you would see Biggie's video and Snoop Dogg's video right after Metallica. So it was absolutely like there is no real difference between Metallica, Snoop Dogg, and Brandy. It's all just music. But I liked the specialty blocks, you know? I like the idea of this is our hip hop music hour. I think uh, VH1 had in the later years they did like music blocks for specifically soul. So like Anita Baker and stuff like that. Like that was good. I like the specialty blocks. And even now, like those old dead cable networks where it's basically like a jukebox, but those are specialty blocks. Like they have a hip hop block, and even stretched off by decade, like 2000s, 90s, 80s, whatever. And that's really good. I think there's nothing wrong with specialty blocks as far as I'm concerned. I got why they got rid of it. They were getting their asses kicked by Rap City, you know. But they if they would have invested more time into it, maybe it would have been different. Yo MTV Raps was 22 minutes. Rap City was 2 hours. It had a lot more time to fill. You know, but the creator of Rap City, he talked about how Bob Johnson, the founder of BET, he wasn't really interested in rap music. He didn't get it, didn't care about it, and he seemed like the kind of guy who would, because of rap's negative connotation, especially in the early '90s, as it became more quote unquote gangster rap. I could see maybe he didn't want that shit on his network. You know, he said Headbangers Ball was in the '80s, and it had a dance show called The Grind. I, to me, it would have been nice for them to have like a Soul Train kind of show on BET. I think that would have been fun. It got weird when they started doing Cedar's World and Hits from the Street and all that stuff. I mean, it was fine and all, but I didn't understand why it existed. And then of course, BET became a problem because they would show the videos on every show, so you no longer needed to really watch Rap City because I think Rap City came on at 4. I want to say I think it came on at 4. But if you were at home early, you probably saw the music video on Cedar's World or Hits from the Street or whatever show came on before Rap City. And then once 106 Park was on the air, you could see the video afterwards on 106 Park. And that would cut into Rap City's popularity, in my opinion. Now, there were still some guys that you were only ever going to see their videos on Rap City. Like I didn't have to worry about if I missed DMX video on Rap City that it wasn't going to be on 106 Park. It absolutely was. But AZ, I can only see him on Rap City. Nori, never really saw. Well, maybe Nori made it on 106 Park a couple of times. But in the early 2000s or whatever, like that Ja Rule shit was on both Rap City and 106 Park. It was terrible. What are my thoughts on Stacey Dash's comment about getting rid of BET? I don't know what Stacey Dash's comments about BET are. I have no idea what her comments are. So feel free to tell me what her comments are. If it's lengthy, I'll probably have to look it up. But I miss music videos that matter. Music videos don't even really matter anymore. They don't really need them to sell records anymore. It's an unnecessary investment. Um, I did watch some of the videos for Common's new album with Pete Rock. I watched a couple of the videos for that. I thought those were good. They always fit Common's theme, though. He just kind of has those kinds of music videos. But the big production music videos, those were my favorites, like the Busta Rhymes joints. Those were favorites of mine. You know, J Reaction says, "What was cool is you would see rappers from different regions on Rap City, especially Southern artists." Yeah, see, that was the beauty of it, right? That you would be exposed to so many different kinds of people. And I can't say that Rap City the Basement introduced me to anybody that I wouldn't have heard otherwise, because I did have a pretty eclectic musical taste, but it did humanize a lot of the guys that you would see, like when the Clips was on Rap City. I already like grinding. But then you see him on Rap City and you hear him freestyle and everything, you become like, ooh, like these dudes are the truth. Like this is good shit. Like, and then you became a fan of guys sometimes by how they did it in the booth. Maybe you didn't like the music video that they threw to or whatever. Maybe you didn't like their new song, but they would go in the booth and rap, and you'd be like, "Oh, this is fun." AJ3 says she was on Fox News talking about if we want segregation or integration, and if we want integration, we should get rid of channels like BET. That seems pretty generic. That's generic shit. That's generic black conservative talking point. I don't think there's anything wrong with people having BET. I don't think anything wrong with Univision. I don't think anything wrong with cultural specific things. You know, I think that as long as BET plays white rappers, who cares? If there was some black artist that played rock music and he was banned from from getting on some kind of rock network, I would say, okay, that's not fair. But my thing is, if you want to specialize, that's where the money is. There's a lot of specialization in money. I mean, scratch that, reverse it. There's a lot of money in specialization. Some people like one genre, they don't like the others. Like, I was never a huge fan of like 90s or 80s R&B. That was never my thing. I had no interest in sitting through MTV's gaggle of crazy videos to see Busta Rhymes, which is what I wanted to see, or to see the new Bone Thugs video, or they heaven to Betsy, they might ban it, which we've heard happen a couple of times. So I think that giving people what they want is a natural form of segregation. Plus, I don't think any black person would complain if you had Tina Marie on your R&B station. Nobody's going to complain. They might complain if you play Adele. They ain't gonna be mad if you play some Tina Marie. They ain't gonna complain at all. You know, they might not really appreciate Blondie, but some of them might get down with some Black Eyed Peas or something like that. Jay Reaction says, because I'm in New York and in 2000, if you didn't watch The Basement, you would think Jay-Z was the only rapper who existed. Huh, which is crazy because he only was on the show once. I remember Jay-Z being only on that show one time. That was to promote the Black album. That was the only time he even made an attempt to go to Rap City. Now they had other people from Rockefeller on there. I remember Beanie Siegel and State Property being on there. I remember Memphis Bleak going on there. I remember everybody going on there. But Jay-Z would never, ever go on Rap City. And I would just be surprised by that, like, because they played all of his videos so often and so much, you know, you would be like, God damn. But Jay-Z never made the trip to Rap City. I think he might have been the only person who was like major who never went on the show until like that one time. I think even Diddy had been on there more than he had. But Jay-Z refused to came to Rap City. Then he finally came for the Black album. And that was a big fucking deal. Even Eminem, when he was selling all those records, he was showing up on Rap City. I think, people like Dr. Dre became too big for the platform. But which was fine anyway, because a lot of the younger guys with more to prove, they got to go on there and do fine. J Reaction says BET has never excluded artists of other races. I heard Eminem more on BET than Hot 97. Yeah, that was the good thing. That's why I say like the old integration argument, like get rid of BET, is like, no. Why would you do that? Just it doesn't need to be black only. You can have a black specific network that doesn't need to be black only. MTV wasn't white only. They gave preference to certain things though. And I'm not gonna lie, like I used to see some of those videos on BET, like these songs are terrible, these bands are awful, and they're still getting played on MTV like twice an hour. But I became more well-rounded, I think, from watching MTV. And I think for a lot of people, that's what they're missing in their life right now. Because you can so much carefully curate your life and your experiences now. Spotify and YouTube and everything, it keeps you away from things that you might actually like if you gave it a chance. Because I was growing up watching both BET and MTV, I grew up actually knowing some rock acts and liking them. Like I remember really loving like Enter Sandman, hearing Marcy's Playground, Sex and Candy. Like those kind of videos stuck with me, the White Stripes. Like that kind of stuff stuck with me because I was watching MTV. And I was sometimes have to sit through Nickelback or the Backstreet Boys to get to a video that I actually wanted to see. And it was hit and miss. Like sometimes I would hear some shit like Hammerstein or something like that, and be like Rammstein, and be like, what is this shit? Like this shit is garbage. And then you might get lucky and it's some Guns N' Roses. You're like, okay, I like this. I mean, it is what it is. But boy bands and that shit was awful, bro. That shit was an awful time. That shit always made me not want to watch MTV anymore. Because then they started building shows around it. The Christina Aguileras and the Britney Spears, that really kind of destroyed MTV for me. You couldn't get away from that shit. Like the rock bands, there's 3 or 4 minutes, bro. You're not gonna die because you got exposed to a rock band for 4 minutes. That's not gonna really hurt you. But once it became like Britney Spears every 20 minutes, I was like, oh hell no. 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 Gozu97 says Jay-Z is the one rapper I can remember that can fail upwards. He said, I mean, he got bodied by Nas and Cameron, but still able to reach legend status. Well, that was because he was a legend before that shit happened, and he got lucky. Gozu remembers when his black radio station played Led Zeppelin's Cashmere just for the fuck of it. Well, they stole so much blues, and it might as well be black. I'm not gonna go into that though. But I was introduced to so much like Lenny Kravitz. I remember, like, I think recently he said that he didn't get any play from black people. And he's 100% correct. I never saw Lenny Kravitz video on BET ever. I never saw a Lenny Kravitz music video on BET ever. Every time I've seen a Lenny Kravitz music video, it was on MTV or VH1. That's it. I never saw Lenny Kravitz on BET. So I remember being a kid, kind of a woke kid, went to a woke middle school. You're like, man, is the only Negro to ever pick up a guitar, Bob Marley? Like then you start like, okay, Jimi Hendrix, but he's been dead since the 1960s. And okay, BB King, but that's something my mama listened to. And you're like, okay, well, do any black people play instruments? I didn't know about Slash at the time. So I see Lenny Kravitz. And I'm like, this sounds like some shit I heard in Target. But it is some shit I heard in Target. And I didn't know that the guy who made it was black. Because I never saw him on BET ever. And I was like, wow. I had an appreciation for Lenny Kravitz. Because I was like, oh, okay, and his stuff is not terrible. It's good. It's not like the best, but it ain't terrible either. I don't understand why he wouldn't make BET. Do I know about NBA YoungBoy? I know some, but that weird looking kid. Um, I don't listen to him. Why I listen to that? You got into Oasis. Now, Oasis, Wonderwall, right? I did see. I remember that video, and I remember that song. But um, that's why I started. I really became like a connoisseur because I was like, I kind of like Green Day. I did like Nirvana. Um, and these are all things I would not have been exposed to without MTV. So now you have a lot of black people today that don't listen to rock music at all and don't understand anything about rock music. And by contrast, not only do they not know anything about rock music, they also don't know anything about funk, right? So they don't know anything about funkadelic. They don't know anything about Jimi Hendrix. If a nigga plays an instrument, they don't know nothing about it, unless it's Alicia Keys, because she plays like the piano. That's it. If you can play really sit down and play an instrument, like they not sure. Esperanza Spalding, who does like kind of contemporary R&B or something like that. But that's basically it. It's very it's very unfortunate that with the death of MTV and the ability to curate your musical taste, most people have no idea what they actually like. So they end up listening to the same stuff and the same kind of stuff over and over and over again. And video games used to help with that too, because you would play a video game and get exposed to different kinds of music. You know, the Madden games. Was it Madden that introduced me to Seether, the band Seether? With that song "Broken Again." There were some other like Madden and WWE games that introduced me to different kinds of music. You don't really see that much anymore. It's unfortunate, but now they think you're a white boy if you know anything about a rock band. You from the hood. AJ3 says it's really sad there are no more black networks that are owned by black people. Do you remember this network called Bounce XL? I do not. When did it exist? These kids don't even know about. Most of them have never even listened to Stevie Wonder. They may know the hits. If somebody samples Stevie Wonder, they probably know it. But chances are these kids ain't never sat down and listened to Stevie Wonder. Chances are they have not. You know, And I say, and this goes back to the breakdancing thing, that black people are the only ones who discard their culture. We create shit, popularize stuff, and then the youth have nothing to do with it. They don't want to interact with it at all. It's old. So you keep starting from zero, you know? The black culture enjoys it, but then the kids of those that are enjoying it, they go in a different direction. Like my great grandparents were into gospel. My mom and dad are into like the blues and the Temptations and Motown, soul, which is it has some gospel elements to it because a lot of those singers, their grandparents and stuff had them singing in the choir, like Aretha Franklin and all of them, right? But they kind of moved away from it. You know, they moved away from the blues and the jazz into the soul. And then when they grew up a little bit, they became more into the funk. And then you see that generation that grew up on funk, they were the first rappers. You know, this is where Snoop Dogg gets a lot of his stuff from, and Dr. Dre was sampling a lot of Zap records and stuff like that. And now you have these kids. I just saw something today. This kid ain't never heard of Tupac. Like he never heard a whole Tupac album. And look, I'm not the biggest Tupac fan in the world, but as much as other people talk about him, you weren't even curious to sit down and listen to. It's like, okay, well, you heard all the singles. You heard "Hit 'Em Up," you heard "California Love," and you heard, Two of America's Most Wanted with Snoop Dogg. Maybe you heard that shit, but you ain't sat down and listened to like a whole album. It's the lack of curiosity that bothers me because they don't have to sit through entire albums anymore. They can now curate their Spotify to only the songs that they've heard, only the songs that other people have told them about, and they never have to listen to a whole album. I had to listen to album like I have some of my favorite songs from people are not even singles. You know, they're album tracks. But those kids have no experience with that stuff. It's unfortunate. And we doing it constantly doing this to ourselves. We're starting from zero. The young people only listen to folks in their own age group or older people who are directly influenced with them. Like I'm pretty sure that the young kid who never heard a whole Tupac album, I'm almost certain he listened to Gucci Mane and Jeezy. I would imagine at least he's heard of them. you know, but it's. I think a part of it isn't, really the attention span. I think it's largely it's a focus on innovation and a focus on something new. But black people are the only ones that I see that they discard everything old. And I was talking about this when I was talking about breakdancing at the Olympics on Twitter. That everybody who is offended, they've probably never been to a Public Enemy show. Public Enemy still does shows. And I remember Chuck D talking about they couldn't get they couldn't fill a high school gym in the United States. They could still rock stadiums in like Japan and Europe where they're still appreciated. They're not appreciated here. The only song you'll ever get most of these hipsters to say that they know from Public Enemy is Fight the Power. That's pretty much it. It's becoming more and more ridiculous. And the crazy thing is Stevie Wonder is still alive. It'd been one thing if he's been dead for 100 years, like, I don't even blame you if you don't know who Jimi Hendrix is or Bob Marley. They've been dead for decades. But some of these people, they're still alive. I think there was a rapper, her name is No Name. She was talking about how she's tired of doing shows in front of all white audiences. When I first saw her, she was on the undercard of a Lauryn Hill concert, and nobody knew who the fuck she was. She was just one of those spoken word poets from Chicago. I don't know how she became so popular, but she became especially popular among the woke blacks. And she started talking about how she's tired of white people at her concerts. I'm like, those are the only people that are going to remember you, baby. In 10 years, none of these Negroes that's following you will care about your music at all. Look at Amanda Seales right now. How many people actually remember Amanda Diva? Not many. She's more known for lying about that guy sexually assaulting her than she is about anything she's done musically or anything she's done in terms of being a DJ or a singer or anything of the sort. And that's just how it is. Ask anybody if they ever heard of Amanda Diva. They haven't. They don't know who that is. Like, that's Amanda Seales. Oh, you didn't know she was a rapper? You didn't know she was a singer? This is over a decade ago, but she did it. She filled in for, I believe, the other young lady at Floetry for one of their tours, or did she fill in for Marsha Ambrosius? I don't remember which one. But that's how she got on. She didn't get on for being woke black. She got on because she was a musician. And she was on television and everything. I think she was on like a Disney show or something. People don't learn their history. They fail upwards, and then they start saying like, "Oh, we started that. That came from our ancestors." Like, but you don't interact with it at all. You don't care about it at all. You don't care about it until somebody else does something with it. Like they was just talking about online Lucien Grange, who Kanye West talks about a lot. We could talk about him in a second before I wrap this up. I want to talk about that Milo stuff and how him and his son own so many, percentages of so many albums and discographies or whatever. And black people complaining about it. I say, well, you don't care about none of that shit, no way. Come on, man. Do you really care if those guys own like the entire back catalog for Zap or something like that? You don't even know who Zap is. You know, like there used to be TV shows dedicated to teaching people this stuff, but not anymore. You have to be curious in order to get anything now. And most of these kids are not curious. Unless they come across it on TikTok or something like that, they do not care. To look up a song. There was a song I heard in the comic book shop just yesterday. I was like, what is this? And I just stood there and absorbed it for 3 minutes. And then the entire way home, I was going through YouTube trying to find it. It ended up being a very surprising source because I kept going past it like it can't possibly be him. It ended up being Tyler the Creator, the song Sweet. Because I was like, that cannot be Tyler the Creator. I remember Tyler the Creator, and he always made like loogie music, like crazy Eminem style gross shit. I couldn't imagine he made something like that. But I was curious, and so I went picking through every song that had similar wording, and finally I found it, and it was Tyler the Creator. I was like, well, damn, he grew up a lot, and the song was also kind of gay, but I liked it anyway. Jay reaction says the irony is the more woke an artist is high, the less of a black fan base they will have. Yeah, they don't understand that. Common said something similar that No Name said, you know, about the entirety of the show being white people. But there's a lot of black people who are into that Common and Pete Rock album. I think it's great. It's a fantastic album. Unfortunately, the people that it's supposed to get to, it ain't gonna get to them. Which takes me to, I guess we could talk about this too since we're on the subject. They were talking about the Common album and the Nas Hit Boy stuff, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we need to have a subgenre of hip hop, an adult contemporary for the older hip hop heads who still like Nas and Common, Black Thought. And this is around the same time LL Cool J is coming out with a new album that's produced by Q-Tip, right? So he's got a new song with some girl who I'm supposed to know who she is if I don't. And they're like, we need to come out with a different genre because now a lot of the artists that were popping in the 90s, they're coming back. Like they're still old enough to go, and they're coming back. Like this has never really happened before. Like when guys who was popping in the 80s would try to come back in the 90s, they would almost always get shushed. When KRS would drop something new, or Rakim almost never did. But when somebody would try to penetrate the 90s, the 2000s era, most people were kind of like, not really all that interested. But Nas did something with Hit Boy where he kept his name alive. Now, a lot of the young guys don't listen to that shit. But a lot of the younger dudes, they don't fuck with that. But a lot of the older ones who grew up with Nas, they listen to it. And that same audience is found more stuff coming their way from LL Cool J and from Common, and apparently some other people who I heard are going to be, dropping albums. I think the Tribe Called Quest had an album like a few years ago, which I think was their last album because, of course, Fife passed away. And should we just have like this new section for new music from old artists? And I understand why I think Q-Tip was against it, but I understand why people want it to exist. There's a lot of people who, if it don't sound like mumble mouth drill shit, they don't want to hear it. But there is hip hop for older people now, and we're old enough that most of our favorite artists are still alive, and still able to do this at a high level, which wasn't the case 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I don't know if anybody would have really bought into a Grandmaster Caz Cool Mo D album in 1997. I don't think anybody would have bought into it. I don't think anybody would have really listened to it. I think Ice-T dropped an album in like the mid 90s, and he was washed by that time. It's like this guy hadn't been around that long. He only been around for 10 years or something like that. I think 6 in the Morning came out in 1986, 1987 maybe. Maybe Power was around that time, Colors and all that kind of stuff. Shit, by 98, Ice-T was basically in the oldie section. The only person that was able to come out with something new from the 80s to like the 2000s was Too Short. And that was because, he jumped on that Bay Area swag. Sent him in E40. But E40 didn't become really a big deal until like the early to mid 90s. So you got artists now who can still, and they're doing it the old way, where they got one producer and they're working with one producer for the whole album, which is creating a more immersive experience. And you then start to wonder why you ever got away from that. which is a big surprise to me that people are interested in that, and I'm glad to hear it. But I like what I'm seeing. AJ3 says her name is Sweetie. Sweetie. Okay. I never heard of this girl before in my life. I saw a lot of people get jazzed over it. I was like, okay. I listened to the video. I like the production, and it is, it's classic LL Cool J. It's it's doing it for a new generation for sure. You know, but LL is almost 60. He's been doing it since he was 16. It's like, who is his core audience? His core audience is as old as he is. I like the song he did with like Rick Ross and all them too. I think the production for whatever it is LL Cool J has planned is great because Q-Tip is a fantastic producer. It's just I'm wondering what his core audience is for the Force, because I know it's his album name. Jay Reaction says we have in New York we have an oldies hip hop station. I mean, yes, there should be an oldies hip hop station because hip hop is 50 years old, and there's going to be songs from the 80s and the early 90s that people have never really listened to, or for people who grew up in that era, that's what they want to hear. What I'm talking about is new material from old artists. Like, where are you going to listen to the new Common album? Like, who's going to play that? It's boom bap for starters. So you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be like, "Oh, it's boom bap. It's old." So I can tell you, you got to jump through 100 hoops. For starters, it's Common, who has never really been like street. Even though people have always had utmost respect for him, he's always not. He's never been a street dude. He's always been a more. You have to be a certain level of elevated to listen to Common. But I don't know. But I think that the older guys coming in, man, they're doing something completely new. They're doing things the way that they should be done, the way that things should have been done from the beginning. They find a producer and they just sitting down and banging out albums with them. Because I'm telling you, the LL Cool J stuff I'm hearing is pretty good. I love the Common album. I love the Hit Boy and Nas albums. Pusha T, he's probably going to move away from Kanye West, even though I think his last album had like half Kanye, half Pharrell. He's probably going to have full Pharrell from now on because he kind of moving away from Kanye. But this is the way you're supposed to do things, create a more immersive experience. Reverse engineer how they brought back Carlos Santana in the late 90s. Well, yes. Um, that's because they put new artists on Carlos Santana album. That's pretty much what they did. And then when they did that, it was very short lived, but it worked to get people like me to listen to Carlos Santana. It worked. What are my thoughts on Judge Joe Brown's latest interview? Where I wasn't a fan of any of those judge shows, and to me, Judge Joe Brown, he's funny. I don't think anybody really listens to what he says, though. He seemed like a grandpa who just kind of says shit, and you laugh because it's funny, but you're not entirely sure whether what he's saying is true or not. But it's entertaining, so you listen to it. But I listened to quite a few Judge Joe Brown interviews, and I find him to be incredibly engaging. But I don't know if I buy into anything he says. Gozu 94 says you can't even say that it can't work though. I know it's deviating from the original argument, but Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak's Silk Sonic was highly successful. Yes, 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 yes. I love Silk Sonic. I was listening to Smoking Out the Window just yesterday. I like the No Worries album. I think those things are great, but I think they don't stick like they should. You know, And those things are sort of modern versions of what you would have heard in the 60s, what you would have heard in the early 70s. I think Silk Sonic was tremendous. So that's absolutely no diss. But that's because, those guys dedicated themselves to um, studying the craft and recreating what they knew worked, you know? Now, just kind of to, before we wrap this thing up, let's talk about Milo Yiannopoulos coming out. Basically, I don't want to go through the entirety of his thing, okay? Because it's just entirely too long, and I don't want to go through it. Which is why I didn't do a video on it or talk about it that much. But he did expose that Kanye West is addicted to nitrous gas. That Kanye West is being provided nitrous gas by a corrupt dentist who is keeping him addicted to this stuff. And it's devastating. You know, it's now Milo is most notably as a gossipy bitch, and I don't see how anybody bothers with Milo, if we're being honest. Like if you read, I tried to read that long ass screed he wrote on Twitter. It was a lot of it was just the Yeezy company is bleeding money because people are stealing from Kanye, et cetera, whatever, because he's high on this nitrous stuff. And it's really sad. It will explain a lot of his behavior, like walking around in a mask, you know. It would explain the downfall of, the erosion in some ways of his mental state. But I'm very interested in how he would respond to this. BEP says you're going to be covering that Australian breakdance lady's future mental health adventures. Ah, I wouldn't be surprised if she does. Look, as far as I'm concerned, she did all that shit for attention, and now she's gonna, unless it negatively affects what she's got, whatever it is she does in Australia, which I think she says she's a professor. Unless it negatively affects her profession, she's going to be fine. She just went viral on social media for really being really bad at breakdancing. They're going to laugh at her a little bit, but she's going to get over it. But when you look at how bad she was, I don't even understand how she's able to hold a hold a degree that has anything to do with breakdancing. She is on the gas too. Who's on the gas too? His wife? Nas is more consistent now than he was back in the day. Yeah, that's because he's working with a single producer. See, let's back up because he's worked with a single producer a couple of times. Salah Remy was his producer for a long time, but he will, of course, have guest production here and there. But I think being a little bit older, more experienced, the pressure is not on him to make hits, you know, for things that need to be played on the radio. So he can get more in his lyrical bag, and now he's kind of decided to rest in the boom bap category and to say, well, I'm going to stay here for a while. He's doubling down when it comes to DJ Premier. He's doubling down. And I'm still not sure that album's actually going to get made. I heard they're actually making it. I think that they got some snippets going around. But until the album literally comes out, I do not believe Nas is going to do an album with DJ Premier. Just like I don't believe he's going to do one with AZ. He's been talking about this for 20 years. Until it literally comes out, I do not believe it's coming. I feel bad for Kanye West, man, because I know a lot of this stuff is tied into his mom passing. Uh, Milo put all that information out there, claiming that people are taking advantage of Kanye. I believe it. I believe some of that shit. But when you look at some of Kanye's behavior, like he's talking about his God era is over. He's going to start doing porn. That shit was dumb. It was lame. But even though, even the stuff with Milo, he was already proven wrong. Like he was already talking about that dentist putting fake diamonds in people's mouths, and he mentioned Lil Yachty. And I guess his team reached out to Milo and was like, "Nah, we took our own diamonds to that guy, so your information is false." And he had to come out and admit that the information was false. And I'm like, okay, you're at least he admitted it, but his credibility is already taking a hit, you know. So a lot of stuff is being very questionable. Any thoughts on Sage Steeler? You mean Sage Steele? Wasn't she on ESPN or something? The new Candace Owens for Daily Wire. I think she was on ESPN or something like that. I think she's significantly older than Candace too. So she's not like the new Candace. Candace Owens is coming completely different. Speaking of Candace Owens, boy, she's ever since she went on her own, she's been her and Tucker Carlson. You see how much Fox and Daily Wire was what they were dealing with when now that they're on their own. Oh my God, they're talking about all kinds of shit now. You're like, whoa, it's highly entertaining. I'm highly entertained. I don't have to believe nothing that comes out of Cameron Stone's mouth. But I do believe that she is very entertaining. Milo is a gossip monger now. Are you silly? Mongo Mongo. Milo been that. Milo is the gossipiest bitch on earth. He's terrible. That Kanye shit with the laughing gas got the Michael Jackson's Last Days vibe. It does. It has the that's why it's so scary to me. You know, I think everybody knowing about it hopefully will help and get him back on track. Um, but that's some truly scary shit. With all things to be hooked on, laughing gas, what they call whippets. You know, when you're addicted to gases and stuff. That shit's awful. I'm pretty sure it got something to do with mama dying. He could have severe brain damage from that shit. I hope not. That would be really sad. Kanye, one of the greats from like '04 to 2010. I'm willing to take it a little bit further. Now, 2010 is probably where I would stop, listening to entire albums from Kanye. But there's been glimpses of brilliance after that. You know, the thing is, he keeps burning bridges. He finds good partners, and Kanye needs good partners. He needs people to help him. I think he did some really good stuff when he was working with Kid Cudi. You know, I think he was coming up with some good stuff there. Then I think he burned that bridge, and so you're like, I don't know what's going on now, and it's inconsistent. But I think that more than anything, the one thing we could do for Kanye is to get him to stop rapping. If we could just leave him as a producer, that would be great. If we can get him to stop rapping, because his rapping sometimes doesn't even have anything to do with the song, and he's losing connections to the music that he's making. These celebrity doctors and dentists on a different level. Yeah, absolutely. And it's absolutely disgusting. And I really do hope somebody is looking into it and to figuring out what's going on with Kanye. And is he addicted to that nitrous? Like, because if he is, how long has that shit been going on? And how much damage has that shit done to his mind? You know, people need to. But the music industry, they don't mind people being on drugs. You know, it's very unfortunate. His name is Ye now. Kanye is his slave name. Whenever we entrusted him, his name is Ye. I'm gonna put it to you like this: what did Donda name him? His mama called him Kanye. I'm calling him Kanye. And now that I know that he's a fucking drug addict, I'm not even sure he knows what the fuck his name is at this point. So I'm gonna call him Kanye because that's what his mama called him. So he can call himself Ye, but I'm not gonna remember to call him Ye. But it is what it is. Until he do something, when he goes in the ground, he's gonna be Kanye West. And I hope he turns out okay and can can avoid the Whitney Houston, Prince, Michael Jackson fate that seems to be speeding towards him as quickly as possible. And it's always people who are extremely brilliant. And it seems like they all have the same issues. They get into it with their record label, and then all of a sudden, some celebrity doctor or street drug becomes connected to them, and they start having really bizarre behaviors. Now, when it comes to like, I don't know if Whitney Houston thing was crack. I mean, there's nothing you can really do about that. I don't think anybody got her to smoke crack. That seemed like that was something she was doing on her own. But the scripts that a lot of these other guys have started getting attached to, and now you got Ye getting nitrous delivered directly to his house. I don't like this. I don't want to wake up someday and Kanye West is dead. Or that, or even worse, honestly, than him dying is him still being alive but being so severely brain damaged that he's basically um and is uh dead while alive. I don't want that for him. Hopefully he can avoid that. I would hate to see that. What are my thoughts on the reasonable doubt auction sale that's going on with Dame Dash? Well, I recently saw earlier that Jay-Z sent an email to the auction site or whatever saying that whoever buys Dame Dash's piece of Rockefeller will only own it until 2031, and then Jay-Z himself will own it. So you can buy it, but you'll only own it for 6 or 7 years, and then the rights will revert to Jay-Z. So it's like, what is the point of you buying it then? What would be the point of you buying it if Jay-Z's just gonna get the rights anyway? It's like that. I don't know how he managed to do that. I didn't read the article up, but I don't know how legally he can do that. But somehow he got it that it's going to revert to him in 2031. At that case, he might as well just sell it to him now. I know he was laughing before because we thought he was going to sell it to Cameron or Mace or something like that. And, that still would have been top level funny if he'd have still sold it to Cameron or something. But if you're only going to have it for 5 or 6 years, I don't even see why you want it. Especially since he can take it back in 2031 without exchanging any money. Yeah, I don't want Kanye to end up like any of these people, man, strung out, broke, a shell of himself. Like a lot of people already think he a shell of himself. And I understand that. But it's one thing to just not be at the top of your game anymore because you're a little bit older. It's another thing to be completely debilitated by drug abuse and addiction. And then people take advantage of you. But that's the easiest way to take advantage of somebody to get them addicted to drugs. I don't want to see him like Britney Spears. I don't want him to be somebody's ward. He's already doing weird shit, man. But this stuff it's truly sad. It was so sad to me. After reading all that shit, I was like, man, this is horrible. This is truly horrible. And I think it's been out 4 or 5 days, and I haven't seen Kanye say anything about it. You know, so I'm definitely waiting to see what Kanye has to say about this stuff because maybe it wakes him up. Maybe it wakes him up. He needs to get the hell out of Dodge and into some flyover state to get away from it all. Yeah, I mean, he definitely needs to. There's something about it that I think that when they say that he has untreated mental illness often comes with addiction. Those things are sometimes co-defendant. You will have, oh my god, comorbid. You know, in a way where you'll see people who have mental illness, they also have substance abuse issues as well, and it's their way of trying to handle the mental illness. So they say he had bipolar disorder, and maybe the nitrous is helping with that. I don't know how. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the chemical makeup of the gases that he's taking, but it might help him manage like his mood or something. And he doesn't want to take the mood stabilizers. He certainly don't want to go to the hospital. I don't know. He certainly got some issues if he's addicted to nitrous gas. Definitely got some kind of issue. But whatever it is, hopefully he seems to lack insight. I've never heard him admit that he has bipolar disorder. He seems to be just kind of in denial that he has it, and that's not good for him. Especially if he's surrounded by yes men and people who are going to be like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you," which is like the real danger of being mentally ill is other people basically telling you that you're not, and that other people are trying to control you with medication or something like that. And when you're that famous, some people are trying to control you with medication. It says N2O is a potential novel treatment for bipolar depression as it causes cerebral vasodilation. There's someone cashing in on that extra supply. Interesting. That's that's sad as hell right there, man. I didn't need to know that. I didn't need to know that. But I could pretty much guess that something was helping him. If he has bipolar disorder, he's going to take something to stabilize his mood. especially since he was known for flying off the handle, easily provoked, easily agitated. Definitely needed to stabilize his mood somehow. He seemed to have manic episodes. I don't know about. I mean, depression I could see, but then again, we really only see Kanye act out when he's having his manic moods. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have manic episodes too. So he probably got manic depressive bipolar disorder. Usually, when somebody has severe depression, they're very unkempt and they're very emotional. Kanye is emotional, but he seems to keep himself up. So he seems active too. Like it's never long periods of Kanye disappearing. So, but maybe it's a treatment they're trying to. But that's you shouldn't be talking to a dentist about that. You need a psychologist, brother. A dentist supplying you with nitrous gas is not going to help your bipolar disorder. You need a psychologist, you know. And who knows? Maybe there is a psychologist out there who said, "Oh yeah, put him on the laughing gas." That's fucked. I don't like that idea, man. That sucks. I really hope he doesn't turn out like Whitney Houston. Snoop is the biggest success story for an ex rapper. He's basically America's mascot. Yeah, that's why when Jason Whitlock was going on about Snoop Dogg, being a terrible person, I'm like, man, that shit was 40 years ago, man. Everybody loves Snoop. Snoop went on trial for a murder in like 1993 or something like that. Like that shit was that's a lifetime ago, man. And his gimmick about being a pimp and all that kind of stuff, that shit's not real. Snoop been married to the same woman for all his whole adult life. As far as I know, all his children are about the same woman. He's an active dad, coaches his son's football team and all this kind of stuff. It- he is Uncle Snoop. That's who he is now. It's not an act. The act was Snoop Doggy Dogg, you know, back when he was a kid. He's grown up. He doesn't do that shit anymore. The only thing is now that he still smoked that weed, but that's about it. But I want to say I don't think he's the most successful though. I think there's quite a few of them. I think Ice Cube was pretty successful too. I think Ice T has also been pretty successful. I think it's in terms of becoming mainstream, Snoop, yeah. I don't think nobody's more mainstream than Snoop. Snoop Dogg can literally pop up anywhere. And um and everybody would be like, "Oh shit, it's Snoop." He can show up at a Comic Con, a wrestling show, the Olympics. He can show up at the fucking Mars landing, and people are like, "Oh shit, Snoop showed up on Mars," and nobody would be like, "He don't need to be there. He shouldn't be there." You know? I wouldn't be surprised if Snoop don't show up in a fucking Ninja Turtles movie or something like that. That's that's just how it is. Snoop is ubiquitous. You got killed kayfabe for me on Snoop. How so? That Snoop been married to the same woman his whole adult life? Well, you need to learn about Too Short then. When Too Short went on that dating show and was basically being a simp, that that killed me. That killed the kayfabe with Too Short right there. I didn't take nothing he said seriously after that, which I shouldn't have done anyway. After I learned that a lot of the dirty raps he was doing wasn't even his own idea. Everybody loves his cookbooks. Snoop Dogg does cookbooks. See, he's got his fingers in everything, man. There's not that many. There's a couple of rappers out there. Some of the younger ones. that that live the life that they talk about. But most of them, like Ice Cube, been married his entire adult life to the same woman. Um, Ice T has been married to the same woman for decades now. So most of them get married and settle down and play and be cool. Snoop does it. He is a brand unto himself. That is absolutely true. Snoop Dogg has become something beyond music, movie, TV. Again, I think Snoop can show up anywhere and just be the belle of the ball, man. I don't know how it happened. I think Doggy Fizzle might have something to do with it. I think him having a TV show on MTV has something to do with it. But he uh he could just show up anywhere and he'll be fine. I would love to hear stories about rappers who are now gardeners planting roses and flowers. I'm pretty sure there are some. I can't think of any though. A lot of the older rappers from like the early '90s probably became like teachers and stuff. Like Lupe Fiasco is a teacher now. I think he teaches hip hop at some kind of university, which some people kind of groan at. Like, who the fuck want to learn anything from Lupe Fiasco? It's a good gig. I know Ninth Wonder did it for a long time too. They have hip hop theory classes and stuff like this. I don't have no opinion on that shit, man. I just think that it's a music class. There's poems in hip hop. There's social context to it. There's social context and history to the rapper. That stuff might be good. He is funny. He didn't try to remain tough. Yeah, Snoop Dogg dropped all pretense of being tough right after his murder case. Really, he just kind of became fun Snoop Dogg. Like he still does gangster rap. I know he just did an album this year, or the Death Row album, but he ain't about to be carrying no gun. He ain't about to be out here, repping the clique. Most of these dudes have outgrown that kind of shit. Oh, you said Trick Daddy. No, Trick Daddy, man, he looked like yak spit. I don't know anybody listen to Trick Daddy. I'm glad he's doing wholesome things for sure. I enjoy that. I'm glad these guys are growing up and they're getting old enough to start doing things with their kids and doing things with the rest of their family and not feeling like they have to, pretend. Even though Plies now is basically like an arm of the Democratic Party, I'd rather him do, even though his whole gimmick was fake anyway. But I'd rather him do that than him get smoked in the street or something like that. That's why I felt bad for Nelly who getting arrested with ecstasy. Like that sucks. Brother, you fucking 50. What are you doing? You about to have a baby. Why do you got pills? What's gonna become of Sexy Red in 20 years? Who knows? It depends on how well she handles being famous. You know, a lot of these women, they don't really handle being famous that well. But Sexy Red is an interesting case because she already had a baby. I think she's got more than one. Um, Usually motherhood makes them calm down, but it's not really the case. Plies is a Democrat stooge now. Yeah, he's terrible with it too, with his fake ass teeth. But I would rather him do that than get smoked out here in these streets, man. There's worse things than being a Democrat stooge. I guess being dead's one of them. It seems your boy is still fighting the Phantom FNT on his community post. He lost 4,000 followers this summer. Oh, you talking about your boy Zach? Yeah, I seen him going to war with his own followers. It was kind of weird. He's fighting that audience capture. You don't want to get audience capture. AJ3 says, I miss the days when BET used to be professional and prestigious. The BET Awards used to do humanitarian awards. They don't do that anymore. Whatever happened to that? Well, I don't think. I think BET lost its soul a long time ago. BET, of course, is a shell of itself. Of course, it's been sold to Viacom. It's basically MTV and blackface. There's nothing to it. There's absolutely nothing to BET anymore. So, what more can you ask for? You would have to start your own BET now, a new one. But I remember when BET first started to slip, you started seeing things like TV One pop up, which like would show old black sitcoms like um, Sanford and Son and Good Times. Make it official, BET and Blackface channel. Well, that's what that's exactly what it is. That's what it is right now. It's just MTV and blackface. That's all it is. And it was going that way anyway. Because again, the only thing they would do is there's Yo MTV Raps on MTV. Oh, we're gonna start Rap City. Oh, they got TRL over on MTV. We're gonna have 106 in Park. So MTV started doing regular TV shows, scripted television shows. BET started doing scripted television shows. So it is what it is, though. It lost its soul a long time ago. VH1 too. He says not just BET. One ain't nobody black inspired is not owned by anyone black. Revolt was never owned by anyone black, even with Diddy. He's just a mascot. I agree with that. WG Phil says I find his audience pure cringe when he still needs that audience to pay his books, and the same critiques he says about FNT are the ones he does about comics. I'm interested in what's going on over there. I haven't really listened. I haven't listened to a whole video he's done in over a year. I listened to like clips here and there. From what I saw, he doesn't want to trash any of the new material until he watches it. Like I saw this whole thing about the Batman Caped Crusader. I think that's probably one of the community posts that I saw. His fans wanting him to trash on the female Penguin when he says he's not going to do it until he actually watches it. It's like, well, the clip has been floating around out there. But of course, I think they want him to be the 2016 version of who he was. And he was like 40 something then. I don't know how old Zach is. Now he got to be closer to 50. You know? I don't know. I watched Cape Crusader. I didn't hate it. Yes, the female penguin was cringe. So was, pudgy Asian Harley. But I didn't hate the series as much as everybody else did. He realized he created the monster of criticizing media and thinks he likes being critiqued. And the media he likes is being critiqued. I don't know. Like, maybe I need to listen to more of what he's liking because I do know he's always had a weird sense of taste. He's always liked those super edgy 90s comics that most people look at and like, this is trash. He's always liked that stuff. And maybe he's liking more new stuff now than before. I don't know. Some people seem to think the woke era is coming to an end and it's not as bad as it used to be. And maybe you got to give things chances now. Some people seem to have that attitude. I think that they haven't turned on a dime. Well, there was another guy, Perch. He talked about a lot of the DEI stuff. It's not working, and companies are going to get rid of it on their own. You know, which I do understand, and I do recognize to a degree. And everybody thought that X-Men was going to be woke trash, and then they were like, no, it was actually pretty good. And everybody thought that Batman Cape Crusader was going to be woke trash, and then they found two or three things to be mad about. But overall, it wasn't really woke trash. Pudgy Asian Harley. They just wanted to do a different take on the character. So she's basically Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange Batman version. Jay Reaction said it is coming to an end because it doesn't make money. It's wasting so much money, if we're being honest. But everybody already knew that. Everybody already knew that it was a waste of money. But they're now starting to feel it. 10 years into this shit, they're starting to actually feel like this shit is losing us money. We need to do something. And so they're sticking to their core principle of diversity, equity, and inclusion and all that bullshit. But they're now toning it down. Like Morph being gay or Pan or whatever the fuck he is, that was enough to get me to not watch X-Men. But most people watched it and was like, okay, despite that change, it was still pretty good. And then there's people who are saying like, okay, Batman Cape Crusader, yes, they made the Penguin a woman. Okay, Harley Quinn's pudgy and Asian, but overall, I like the Two-Face character arc. You know, I like the show, and I was like, okay, well, these people can say that. But Star Wars is paused from beginning to end. It's over. WG Phil says, I just didn't like how he used the death of Ed Piskor and Comic Historian to justify his actions. Overall, after the Wade lawsuit, he went on a downward spiral. I honestly have not paid attention to any of that. What did he? I was going to wrap this thing up. I'm going to give you an opportunity to fill me in on what happened here with the Mark Wade lawsuit and all this stuff. So when they criticized it, they were in the right, and now they feel bad about it. No, I don't think they feel bad about it. I think they just feel like it's been it's some progress on them not doing it as much anymore. So they're pulling back. You know, some people are starting to say, all right, these comics used to be far worse than they are now. You know, let's give them some credit for things improving a bit. While other people are kind of like, no, it's woke trash. It'll always be woke trash. There'll never be anything that's woke trash. And other people are kind of like, whatever. Like, things are never going to go back to pre-wokeness, I don't think. There are certain elements of that stuff that's going to be with us forever. But there are certain elements that have changed, you know? And I'm willing to say, like, some of it's changed. See, it sounds like the movie industry is turning things around, but is the comic side. They're still doubling down. Not as much. See, the X-Men was a den of debauchery with a bunch of homo sex and a bunch of other shit. And it seems like they're getting rid of that. The Krakoa era, they're getting rid of that stuff. And I didn't read any of that shit. I don't read X-Men comics anymore. I don't read any X-Men comic written after like 2009 or something like that. So I'm not good luck on trying to get me to read an X-Men comic. But most people I can tell, they're okay with the X-Men. It used to be unreadable a couple of years ago when it was X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold and X-Men Red. That shit was terrible. It's unreadable. But now they're just reading it and they don't like it because there's not a lot of action in it. But it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. You know, the character swaps, killing characters off and swapping them with other characters, they're doing less of that now. They just did it with Moon Knight because Moon Knight was popular, was building up. It was actually Jed McKay Moon Knight. It was actually pretty good. And then they killed him off and replaced him with somebody else, but now he's back already. So it's still doing shit like that. They still, disappeared Blade and wrote Blade's daughter, and now Blade's back. I don't know. But from my understanding, they have let up with some of that shit. They let up on it. Like, it's not gone back to pre-wokeness levels of this stuff is quite good. They're still not putting the best creators on these books. They're still bringing in gay people just because they're gay and women just for the diversity reasons. But they're not trying to offend the audience anymore. They're not going out of their way to piss on the audience anymore. It seems they learned their lesson when it comes to that. Thank God wrestling never fully bought into the woke. Yeah, that's one thing that once all this shit kind of clears up when it comes to movies and TV shows and everything, we can always say that wrestling dabbled in it, you know. But Vince being a stalwart, he just let these guys dabble in wokeness. Him trying to push Becky Lynch as a huge star in like 2019 was like as far as he was willing to go. They tried to book her as like she was the star of the show and all this kind of shit. That was as far as he was willing to go. Letting some of the dudes do some Black Lives Matter stuff. He was always willing to play the race game. He didn't mind that kind of shit. So he never really fully bought in, and they always resisted it. So I'm very proud for mainstream even AEW to a degree, even though they probably played more into it than WWE ever did. But pulling back on that, resisting that, is probably one of the best things pro wrestling has ever done. Because it didn't split their audience in half. It had an audience fighting each other. WG feels that the Wade lawsuit was settled with Wade not admitting any fault, and he went on an apology tour to the SJWs at Marvel and donated proceeds to the Trevor Project on the campaign. Oh. Ooh. Ooh, that's horrible. It is around 2024, after the Piscor death, he went back to 2017 Zach for a bit. He was mad because people didn't show up to Furiosa, blaming FNT when Furiosa was getting beaten by the Garfield movie. Huh. I do remember him snapping about the Furiosa movie because he said that people said they didn't want to watch it because it wasn't a Mad Max movie, which I think is a legitimate critique. It's not a Mad Max movie. So why would anybody want to watch a Mad Max movie with no Mad Max? I do agree with that. I do remember that, him snapping about that. So as retribution against FNT, he was blaming the FNT side of killing culture as a means to combat wokeness. Now he's adopted language SJWs would use against the fans. Oh, what is going on? Yeah, I haven't listened to an entire video. Like I said, I haven't listened to an entire video in forever. So I'm interested in where he was going with that. But it seems like a lot of these guys, things are not sticking. Like, there was a time there where just some guy was getting attacked by his own audience too. And that's because I think they found out he was bisexual or something like that. And he's anti-Christianity. And so he was at war with his own comment section too for a short time there. So I wonder what's happening. What's up with that? It's becoming a common thing now. I'm very surprised by that. Yeah, but I kind of figured that Wade lawsuit wasn't going anywhere. I don't even know. That was a waste of money. All right, time to wrap this thing up. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. There will likely be no video tomorrow unless something happens between now and by the time I go to bed. But I'm gonna be going to bed within the next 20 minutes or so. The Just Some Guys hack was due to him defending cuties. Ah, yes, yeah, he did do that. I forgot about that. That lost him a lot of positive momentum. That lost him a lot of positive momentum for cuties. I completely forgot that he defended cuties. All right, I'll check you guys out later. Peace out.